бронемашины, металлическая лава била из севастопольских недр смертоносным потоком. Бронепоезду, построенному севастопольцами, было присвоено славное имя матроса революции Анатолия Поездякова. Много смелых огневых налетов совершил бронепоезд Железняков и его отважная команда. Фронт близко. Еще один стремительный набег.
Hello, this is John Luke's Iron War Horses, and welcome to this episode of Armored Trains. Today we will be focusing specifically on the Crimean type Bepo known as Zhelezhnikov. And if I'm butchering that name or the other name I will use in this, I am sorry, but I'm not fluent in Russian. Can't be helped. So, let's go. In 1941, the Black Sea Fleet ordered the construction of several Bepo, that is the Russian contraction of the word armored train, to aid in the defense of Soviet Crimea from the fascist invaders. Constructed in 1941 at the Sevastopol marine plant and manned by sailors of the Black Sea Fleet along with 4 other armored trains, following the same basic design plan, although each had variations in layout and weaponry. Please see the photos. All were armed with some combination of 76mm anti-aircraft Lender guns and 34K naval guns. Unfortunately, only the names of 3 of these trains are known, which I will display on screen here. Crimea, Ordos, I have no idea how to pronounce that, and the most famous Zhelezhnikov. Of these 3, only detailed information on Zhelezhnikov remains. Before we go further, please, a reminder that if you like what I do, please like, subscribe, share, and perhaps buy me a coffee to help me pay the bills and purchase new archive material. So, according to his Wikipedia page, the namesake of this specific armored train is Anatoly Zhelezhnikov, who lived from 1895 to 1919. So, and I'm quoting from the Wikipedia page, which I will put a screenshot up here, was a Russian sailor, anarchist, and revolutionary best known for dispersing the short-lived Russian Constituent Assembly on Bolshevik orders during the October Revolution. Zhelezhnikov opposed Trotsky's Red Army organization, which abolished self-organization and put Tsarist officers in charge, as a regressive movement. He was subsequently outlawed by the Bolsheviks along with the anarchist blackguards and Makhno Black Army. Zhelezhnikov absconded to Moscow, where the Soviet Executive Committee chairman attempted to reconcile what he considered a misunderstanding by offering Zhelezhnikov a high-ranking role, which he turned down. Zhelezhnikov went to Odessa to continue to fight the White Army, but the Bolsheviks pursued his return again in 1919. He accepted and commanded an armored train. He was killed by artillery outside Ekaterinoslav on July 26, 1919, at the age of 24. So, despite becoming something of a political enemy of the Bolshevik Party during the Russian Civil War, he still served with what appears to be some distinction, and his name was rehabilitated by the Soviet Union for World War II, and with a destroyer and an armored train of the Black Sea Fleet, both being named after him during this period. War Thunder players may also be familiar with the early Cold War Soviet light cruiser of the same name, whose construction was interrupted by World War II. As for armored train Zhelezhnikov itself, its combat record, According to the calculations of the Fleet Command, during 70 combat raids carried out by the armored train from January 7 to March 1st, 1942, Zheleznyakov destroyed 9 bunkers, 13 machine gun nests, 6 dugouts, 1 heavy battery, 3 aircraft, 3 vehicles, 10 wagons with cargo, up to 1,500 fascist soldiers and officers. And this information is all from a book by a N.I. Alexandrov, Sevastopol armored train. I do not have a copy of this book myself. This is all quoting from a specific an article on a Russian website. Because finding information on Soviet armored trains specifically is pretty difficult outside of Russian sources. So I've got no way of verifying if any of this is true or not. But that's what I got. Why was this train so hard to kill? Zheleznyakov had a capable crew and commander who made well-planned use of natural features and tunnels to cover their movements. Their combat route took them through fortified rocky coastal terrain that provided little in the way of opportunities to spot or engage the train at longer ranges. Most of their combat actions were presumably at night, which would have completely hidden the telltale smoke of the 2 locomotives. These factors would make it surprisingly easy for the train to get close to enemy lines, perform its mission, and get away. Furthermore, having 2 locomotives made it very difficult to disable the train by immobilizing it, even with a direct hit to one of its locomotives, the usual way that armored trains were immobilized. The rocky outcrops and tunnels that this train operated from also provide plentiful cover for against air raids and artillery. In the end, eventually one of the air attacks managed to collapse the tunnel that Zheleznyakov was sheltering in, trapping the train, forcing its abandonment by the crew. And later, this tunnel was cleared by the Axis forces, and the train was captured, and at least some part of it was reused. Capture and reuse by the invaders. After 8 months of being a thorn in the side of the Axis forces besieging Sevastopol, Zheleznyakov was, as I mentioned previously, finally stopped by being trapped inside a collapsing tunnel. During the clearing of the tunnel, the remains of the armored train were removed, and Zhelezniakov's armored platforms, which were not damaged by the collapse, were used in the formation of a Panzerzug, although apparently such an armored train could not be found in any source on German armored trains. At the same time, some rearmament was carried out. A 10.5 centimeter field howitzer was installed on a converted carriage. See photo. The train received a new name, Prince Eugen, which participated in hostilities in the north of Crimea against the 51st Army and 19th Tank Corps of the Red Army, and in April 1944 was withdrawn back to Sevastopol, where it was blown up by its crew on May the 8th or 9th, 1944. Composition and armament of the Zheleznyakov and the other Crimean trains would have been similarly armed, just it would have been a numbers difference. Based on the totality of sources, it can be assumed that the armored train included locomotive, 1 armored steam locomotive OV, 1 unarmored steam locomotive E, axle formula 050. It is quite possible that this is the actual locomotive that is installed at the otherwise completely inaccurate representation of the armored trains Zheleznyakov currently at Sevastopol. 4 axle armored platforms. Armament: 3 times 76.2 millimeter, 3-inch 34K pattern 1935 naval guns. 2 times 96 millimeter air defense gun M1914-15, aka Lender guns. These are World War I vintage. 4 times 82.4 millimeter mortars, and a number of DSHK 12.7 millimeter anti-aircraft machine guns, and a larger number of 7.62 millimeter machine guns that would have been fired from embrasures in the side of the fighting cars. So it was quite heavily armed, and an important part of this train, and one of the reasons why it was so hard another reason why it was so hard to kill it, was that almost the entirety of its armament, including its main guns, could be used for anti-aircraft purposes, which made it very hard to attack it. Armor. 2 space layers of warship plating with a layer of concrete in between. Thickness unknown. Centralized rangefinder for the guns. Fire control and communications between cars was through visual and telephone signals. There was also a radio station fitted for communication with other units and command. Unfortunately, everything else about this train, and frankly a large amount of this information I have here, is also, I can't verify it, it's largely conjecture. Anyways, if you have enjoyed this episode, please let me know what you'd like, if you'd like me to cover anything specific, how I can improve. Please like, subscribe, and once again, if you really like what I'm doing and want to help me buy some archive footage and photos without going bankrupt, then buy me a coffee.